Okay, thank you for joining me in making some bread. So, I'm making this bread for someone that is very special to me, but I've only known him for a little bit. Um, so, I'm 60 years old, so I already knew this, but he helped me remember. Um, we're going to be talking today about everything has a shelf life. So, when you talk about shelf life, usually you talk about products in a store. And he works in a store. So, I learned a lesson today that I already knew. And what was that? Everything has a shelf life. I need to do this quickly because I have to go and do some work. Um, Happiness in Malaysia has many surprises, and the surprise today was here we go. The surprise today, you want to make this, let's do this here. So you want to make this completely square because I want to have equal pieces. If you don't have a scale, you could make this into a perfect square like this. And then what we're going to do it the same way we make sushi. So we're going to cut it in half. It's almost, there we go. And look at that. So to make perfect slices, then we're going to cut these in half. Because I don't have a scale. So if you don't have a scale, you don't need one. Look at that. Woo! Okay. It's raining out, so this is actually turning out really well. Then we cut these in half. And these actually will become big pieces of bread. But I don't have a scale, and I need to make sure these are equal pieces. And sometimes I don't make them perfect all the time. Then you cut all these in half. Now you could cut these in half again, but here. And if you want, you could close your eyes and pick them up. And you could just do this. Okay. This one's a little too small. Anyway. Okay, so you have them like this. Now, what we're going to be doing, you need a little bit of flour. We're going to keep folding them, even though they're small. And then you're going to bring them to the center. Like this. Get a better view of this. Where's the camera? There we go. You bring them to the center like this, and then you make a little ball with it. Now you could roll them in a ball, but it's better to do it this way. Okay, there's one. So if you're in a restaurant, they say go, 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 go. Korean, bali, 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 bali. So you go like that. I have to make sure I know where the camera is. Here we go. So the center is here. Then what you do, you keep rolling it to the bottom like this. And we have another one. You have to close it at the bottom. There, we have two. In a restaurant, they make you work really, really fast. So we'll put these here. Put some flour on the bottom. So in a restaurant, you only have a second to do this, and you might be doing hundreds of these. So I learned something that I learned today, something I already knew. And what is that? Happiness in Malaysia has many forms because we have many different people, cultures here. When my daughter was growing up, we lived next to a Pakistani family. And the Pakistani family was very rich. So I thought all Pakistan people were wealthy, like really rich. But it turns out they're not all rich. So she was our neighbor, and the daughter was my daughter's friend. when they went to go to bed, she said, I have to tell you, she has to go home. I said, why? I thought it was a sleepover. She said, we can't have her over. I said, why? Well, it wasn't because of our religion. I didn't really understand it. And one of the things about it was, I think I was in my 30s. I was 39 years old, 40. And what happened was my daughter cried. It was horrible. But I didn't understand. They couldn't have her over because they were praying. So they were Muslim. Some people say Muslim. But what happened was my daughter cried. I didn't have an answer for her. So now I'm 60. I could tell her the reason. They can't really have someone over because they're praying. It would have been the 5th time that day that they prayed at night. They didn't want to insult her. Here, I only have one more. Look how fast I'm going. They didn't want to and also, if you find one is too big, you can always pick and start over. So watch this. So this one was a little small, so I just put a little bit more in there, and then it's the same size. You could see what size they are when they're rising. Okay, so my daughter was so sad. I didn't have the answer. I didn't know what to tell her, but being 60 now, I do. They didn't want her around because they were praying, and it's just not something you would want, is someone around, because it would be hard. She might laugh. She might not understand. So what happened was, today I learned something that I already knew. Here we go. And that is, everything has a shelf life. So one of the things about the traditions here in Malaysia is that they've been around for a long time, but the Malaysian culture hasn't. So here, you have to have a pan like this. So one of the things that I forgot, we're going to use, today we're going to be using regular vegetable oil. And what we're going to do, we're going to put just a tiny bit in here, is that Malaysia was palm fields. Now, a lot of people telling you about Malaysia, they'll tell you about today. But when I was a boy, I did my school project when I was in 3rd grade, and I didn't even know what Malaysia was. And one of the things that my project, it was like a school report. It had, so I'm going to put this here, is that it was all about Malaysia in I'm really old, so when was it? When I did my report, Malaysia wasn't like it is today. So it was not as many cultures, and it was palm fields. Very few people know, but I have a friend who's only 19, Marissa. I think that's her name. I keep forgetting her name. She lived here with her family when she was very small. Malaysia, it didn't have schools. So Malaysia was very different than it is today, but it's a lot more similar than it was different. If you pick them up and they become not circular, you'll want to, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 4 and 4. So, ooh, excuse me. So something about Malaysia which is really important to know, it hasn't always been as it is. And that's what brings me to our lesson today. Everything has a shelf life. So Malaysia won't stay the same unless we help it and keep it the same. All right, guys. Now, you'll need a sharp, 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 sharp knife. Now, if it's not really, really sharp, what I want you to do, you only need to do it a couple times. Now, this knife is sharp. We're going to go ahead and score these. Some people do this right before it goes in, but I don't. So in some bakers, they wait until it rises. But, so we're going to go ahead and show you. You can't go slow. You have to just go real fast. Uh-oh. Hey, go over there. So what happens is every culture and every country was once great, and some cultures we don't even know who lived there. So all we do is we find their, see how if you go slow it doesn't work? You have to go real fast. And if you have a blade, it actually works better. Like a razor blade, which I will get. Now, when you go one way, you should go the other way. So if I go this way, then I should go this way on the second one. So the lesson I learned today is a reminder that everything has a like an expiration date. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and switch. Wow. Okay. Now when you look at these, it looks weird, right? And don't go too. See how I went too far on those? When it rises, it will be a lot different. So these are actually silver dollar size. Now, if there's too much of a little cut, you can always push it in, but it doesn't matter because what's going to happen is, see how that one will have less of it? But these, when you score it this way, it will actually give it character, and each one of them will be different. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this here. There we go. Okay, so these have to rise for like an hour. These will rise for almost an hour, so I could talk to you. One of the things about everything is everything has a shelf life. And people do, countries do, marriages sometimes do. In marriage, sometimes I've counseled people that were married for 50 years and they wanted to get divorced. So I have been married 31 years. And you have to realize sometimes things do have a shelf life. So one of the things that is really important to remember is that fact. I know that. And what happened today was that someone very, very nice reminded me of that. So, oh, here we go. There we go. It was stuck. It was stuck in the back. Okay, so this is how they should look. And I'm making these for someone who reminded me that everything has a shelf life. If it doesn't have the correct cut, you can always recut it. Okay. And sometimes I do this, which will give it, this is my own creation. If you're making bread, don't do this because this is mine. I make a dot pattern around it. And if they're too lumpy on one side, I would tell you to push it and fix it because it will not be round. Okay, so everything has a shelf life, and countries, especially countries, have a shelf life. I think that great America, everyone here knows, and people in America don't know, that the shelf life, when you're there, you don't see it. But if you go somewhere else, I listen to KGO radio, and there's a guy named John. I said Ken retired. John Cobalt, he recently said, oh, I went on a vacation, and Armstrong and Getty too. They said, we went somewhere else and the gas price was so cheap. So everyone from California moved as a group. I think there were 2 million of us. And we said, oh, we're going to move. The shelf life of California has expired. But it turns out where we moved to, the shelf life was expiring. And here's one little trick. Now, no one else will know this. If you put a little bit of flour on the top, it gives it a really nice look. Not too much, just a tiny, tiny bit of flour. So, people I love live in America, and we lived in California. But it's really hard to say bad things about a place you lived. But it was easier because they were, how do you say? They weren't really good or nice there. It was very, very difficult. So one of the things that he was asking was about weapons. And I would say, why do they have drugs in California that they give away even for free to a homeless person? Okay. There we go. So these will rise for quite a while, actually. So I'm going to just clean up while I'm talking. So one of the things that people forget is everything has a shelf life, even this bread. People have a shelf life. The earth has a shelf life. And it just depends on what we're talking about, how long that shelf life is. So, it's a lesson that I learned, and I hope you will always remember it, because if you forget that, you will become like every culture that has ever existed. And when you study different cultures, like when I studied Malaysia, I wrote a report. It was palm fields, and mostly, no one knows here it was palm sugar. So most people know, oh, palm oil. And the palm oil was one of their biggest exports, and it became so expensive, even palm oil had a shelf life. So I want you to remember that today. Always have happiness wherever you live, but remember, the shelf life is one of the most important things that we'll learn about as people. One of the creatures that I love the most are alligators. Crocodiles, alligators, whales. I love mammals. I've learned more from mammals than I've learned from people. So when I studied in the university, my degree is in humans. But when I went and had to do an internship, I did it with mammals, and I worked at the Marine Mammal Center. And one of the things that I learned was, if we tried to release an animal that we once helped get better, if we showed our face, when we went to release it, it hopped back in. So what it did was, we released the sea lion, it hopped back in our boat. So it was like a puppy, get out of here, go. So we learned we had to cover our faces. Now this was when I was I was 21? Yeah, I was like 21 years old. And we learned we had to cover our face. We could not let it connect with us, because it got used to us helping it. So it knew that we had fish in the boat. So it relied on us too much. When you're helping, you have to always remember you can't give too much. There's an old saying, give a man a fish, he'll need you to feed him forever. Give him a fishing pole, and he'll fish for life. And it's really an old saying, and it's true. So I say to you today, So I say to you today, listen to other people from different cultures, because what you'll learn is you're all the same. So I'm signing out. Thank you for joining me for baking and learning about resiliency and learning about shelf life. Thank you very much. I hope you subscribe, because I only have 2 subscribers, and if I want to go live, I need 500. Thank you very much, and thank you to Apex.